answer is going to be a very weird one.
Okay.
First and foremost, even I don't know what this Africa rising is. Okay.
Okay.
Do they mean Africa is rising in terms of numbers and babies and whatever else?
Yeah.
Or is Africa rising in terms of poverty? Is Africa rising in terms of opportunity? Or what is it? Because this is my answer to Africa rising. Africa rose a long time ago. Africa is where mankind started. It was the cradle of mankind. Okay. In fact, it started, I mean, the first man was out of Africa. And the first man used to crawl, and then he bent up, and then he walked. So when the first man was able to walk in Africa, that's when Africa rose. We rose from our knees, and we rose to being standing up. So for me, Africa rising took place then. It's not taking place now. The difference is that Africa is the last continent to make a difference.
That's great. Hi, everyone. Thanks for checking out this interview. My name is Fahad, and I'm your host. And today I have a very special guest, Fatima Alimohamed. Fatima is the CEO of African Brand Warrior, and she's an African and a Kenyan. She leads the African Brand Warrior is a marketing and communication consulting agency that is committed to make African brands make impact in African communities. She also holds seats on different boards, including being chair of agribusiness sector for Association of Ghana Industries. She's a board member of Cotton Board Ghana, representing AGI, Council of Patrons for Oil Palm Development of Ghana, Regional Director Africa for Nations of Women, Queen Mother for Royal Palace of Memia, Ghana. So if I go on talking about her achievements, it can take like 30 minutes to an hour. So I will stop and we'll learn more about her as we go through this interview. Fatima, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Fahad, for having me. Pleasure is mine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we connect via LinkedIn, and I was so honored that you accepted my invitation to do an interview with you. Hope people are going to get a lot from this interview. So before we start to get into questions, we want to learn about who you were before you started helping these brands and becoming a thought leader, having like this voice for Africa and African brands. Like who was Fatima growing up? Where were you born? Give us like a backstory of your childhood life.
Okay, I was born into a very humble family. My dad passed away a few years back. I have a mom, and I have a sister who lives in London, a brother who has been transferred to Egypt. So my brother and his family and mother are in lockdown in Egypt. Can't wait to know when the world opens so I can see my family. I grew up in Kenya, in Nairobi. Educated in Kenya, and then moved on and was educated in London, did my university in London. I came back to Kenya and I got into the world of advertising, even though my background is actually law and psychology. And then came in and then decided to do another degree in marketing. And what came out of it was that I just loved the feel of marketing. And also because of having background in psychology, it helped me to start understanding people and, why do they do what they do? We know that as human beings, we're always surrounded by truth, evil, fakeness, reality, various things. And in the process of working with brands and trying to understand, it's sort of like discovering, it's like an onion, you keep pulling out layers and layers to get to the core. What I loved was that I'm the kind of person I can walk into any room and I will speak to whoever it is. I don't care whether you're a president of a nation or whatever. I have no fear. I walk in and I just say things, So sometimes a lot of people are like, Fatima, how can you just do that? And I'm like, if you're true to yourself, you're able to walk into any place, and that's where authenticity comes from. And that ties in also to what a brand does. So from working with the marketing agency, I then ended up working on different brands with Young and Rubicam. And Young and Rubicam is a global advertising agency. With them, I worked on tire, I worked on milk, so you can talk to me about clinker, you can talk to me about tires. I was working with Firestone in retread. You can talk to me about planes, you can talk to me about cooking fat and cooking oil, been there, done that, and moved on where one of my clients, which was Bitco, took me over. They are Africa's, well, I'd say now as Africa's, they initially at that time were East Africa's biggest, I would call it, multinational, because it was the only African homegrown company playing in various categories in terms of home and personal care and food, and joined in with them and started the integrated marketing communication department, because it was all about integrating what marketing and communication was about and working with the different facets of the business. From then, I was transferred to Uganda. Lived in a village at the time, which is now an amazing place called Jinja. I set up, and as part of the team, the factory in Jinja, also at the oil palm plantation, where I remember I used to get, this is the thing sometimes as being a female, it's not that it's thrown on us, but we sort of come in multifaceted. So all my directors, were all these men, and nobody thought about where food was coming from. So we used to travel to Kalangala Island, which used to take us, God, to get to the site itself, which used to take us at least 5 hours, from the ferry to the road to whatever. There are no hotels, there's no electricity, there's no place to sleep. But here's Fatima. What do? I go into the market and I go and buy tomatoes, onions, noodles, whatever. Nobody ever said I needed to do that. But I just knew that we had to eat, and I had to figure out how we're going to do this. So I would take, cooking pots and everything, and cook breakfast, lunch, dinner for my directors, and we survived. Then obviously lived, through Uganda, having to work in the various markets. I did Burundi, Rwanda, Congo, Southern Sudan. I mean, my favorite was flying into Southern Sudan and having all these guys with guns, facing the plane. And then as soon as you land, it's just this little cubicle with a wall that has a hole broken in, and they throw your bags, and you live in a tent. And we used to, it was tented hotels, and we live in that, and prefab and bathrooms. So when I sit and look at where I have come from, my journey has been amazing, because then from Uganda I was transferred to West Africa. I was asked to look at, Ivory Coast. So I was handling Ivory Coast for a year, made amazing friends there. And then when it was time to move with my daughter, I felt, okay, it might make more sense to move to Ghana because of the language, having to start from scratch in terms of speaking French for my daughter and all, that was going to be a problem. And it was sort of a blessing in disguise. And that's why I believe, when you have small problems but a bigger God. I'm a firm believer in God. It just so happened when I moved to Ghana, within a span of a short time, when the Gbagbo situation happened, I lost very close friends and colleagues who were murdered in that period. So there was a reason as to why I needed to be in Ghana and not Ivory Coast. Came in, set up, worked for one of the largest organizations called Wilma International. They're the number one in the world in terms of agri business. Set up an edible oil refinery, built the brand, got 80% market share, reached a point, and then you ask yourself, what next? And I've been blessed to work on brands and build them to number one. I'm a no-nonsense on that. I believe if there was a way my shoes would tell stories about places they've gone, people they've spoken to in markets, and feeling the pulse, then my shoes will tell a story. So I quit and decided what next. And I remember I cried for 2 days. I cried because I was on initial two-digit dollar salary per month. And to give that up, I cried, and I was like, hell, what is going to happen, And then from that, African Brand Warrior was started. And I think within a week of just setting it up, I got, in fact, one of the biggest, it was a guy that I was consulting with out of South Africa. and they gave me the opportunity to work with McDonald's at the time, and obviously it was part of their business and what they were doing. And I thought, hey, wait a second, if this can come in, then it means every other business can come in. So I won't mention the businesses that I currently consult with or do stuff for, but I'm just very blessed to have a client base that have believed in the third eye of what I am able to bring onto the table. African Brand Warrior is about a battlefield. It's about no bloodshed. It's about going to that battlefield and making a brand, being able to stand up. One, as an African, it has to be African born. It has to understand the African consumer, and it has to be able to lift society up. It's about having a brand with a purpose. So it's not about just coming and telling a consumer that they've got to buy this. They need to know what you're doing for them and how are you lifting them up in their lives to also be a part of your brand community. So in a nutshell, that's what it is.
Oh, that's amazing. You've done a lot of work. That is just a little glimpse.
There are many other things I've left out, but yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for giving us that story. And that's great. Can we talk a little bit more about African Brand Warrior?
Let me tell you why African Brand Warrior was born.
Yeah.
I've worked in the advertising agency field in terms of marketing communications. I've worked on a client side. And one of the things that I've realized, and one of the things you're going to get used to, is that I say things as it is. I'm not diplomatic in certain things. One of the challenges is that a lot of times clients like to blame the advertising agencies when numbers don't come in. Oh, because this campaign didn't work, you didn't explain this right, your advert was not perfect, the label that you did for us was not great. What they don't understand is that a lot of times it's what communication is being given out from businesses to the communication agencies. Okay, now you also have within your communication, within your business and manufacturing or marketing businesses, a little holdback. Because leaders and people in the board, directors, people within the C-suite try not to share a lot of information with people down the line in businesses. There's this secrecy, of the numbers and what are the volumes being done, or what is the pricing, what is the cost. So what happens is then when the people down the line don't have the full information, they tend to also give out only half-baked information. Okay, so they'll probably brief that this is what our market share is because maybe a research company has come and given them the feedback on that, or they'll pick third-party information because everybody wants to make themselves look good. Nobody's really going to say, hey, listen, we're suffering, we're losing consumers, we're being trolled, there's no information, or my company doesn't give me the information that I need. So what happens is then the information that goes out to the communication agencies is only an iota of the bigger picture. So obviously what they're going to craft is based on what you've given them, okay? The second angle is that also from the communication angle, most of them are just communicators. These are not people who are into strategy. They really don't break down brands and consumers and understand what makes them tick or ask the right questions to their clients. So I saw an opportunity there of, wait a second, I've been blessed to work for great organizations, whether it was Young and Rubicon, whether it was Bitco, whether it was Wilma, where I was a hands-on person. You talk to me today about a jerry can, I can tell you how a jerry can's made. I can tell you what is a 1-ply, what's a 3-ply. You talk to me about cartons, I can tell you how cartons are made. I know about packaging, I know about the printing process. So I've been blessed to learn all that and also want to learn. So that means that I can be the perfect fit to go into a business from a strategic part and say, hey, wait a second, your current line is producing X, Y, Z, but have you thought of an opportunity that if you did X, you could probably increase volumes, or you could actually change the line that you're in? Let's look at it from a market perspective, so outside in, and also let's look at inside out. What is it that we can do? So you come in, it's not about creating only strategy, but it's being a part of the finance team. We know businesses like to work in silos. It's unfortunate, but the marketing department doesn't get along with the sales department. The finance department doesn't get along with everybody. Production department doesn't know much with QA. So African Brand Warrior comes in as the adhesive between all these departments and now is able to bring in a bigger picture, is able to understand things, is able to understand what is the vision of the board, and then to also understand what are the challenges the people below the line have, what are their ideas, because I believe an idea can even come from a toilet cleaner, it can come in from the kitchen staff, it can come from anywhere. And then I work with the communication agencies, so I become the bridge between the two, so that whatever we churn out has the perspective of both client and communicator, and then brings it, in that manner. So that's what African Brand Warrior offers, and it comes in from the perspective of challenging. I keep saying that if you're too comfortable in what you're doing, then there's a problem. There has to be discomfort in whatever we're doing. So African Brand Warrior actually comes in to create that discomfort, to question your why, to question your purpose, to question why are you doing what you're doing, and how can we do it better. So that's what we do.
Amazing. Great. So you're based in Ghana. How do you, like, the clients that you work with? Are they brands that are based in Ghana or across Africa and international?
Interestingly, I don't work with any client in Ghana. I think it's probably just one or two. All my clients are outside Ghana. There are different parts of Africa. I work with people in Mozambique, in Malawi, in Uganda, in Rwanda. Even Yukapira Sugar in Uganda. I was a part of that in terms of some of the design aspects. So I have clients in different parts, and they're all African based and born in Africa, with the intent of not only building their brands within the continent, but obviously wanting to take it outside the continent.
Great. So one of the things I wanted to ask you, obviously I've read a lot about you. I've seen the events where you give talks, interviews with people, and you seem to have a lot of energy, a lot of passion, a lot of confidence. How did you develop that for other young women who want to have an impact? Like, how can they develop their confidence and their energy and do things they're passionate about?
From I think from the time that I was a kid, all I remember is I was very outspoken, very confident, and bless my parents for that. I think we were given the liberty. I mean, I'm a multiracial child, and when you are born into a multiracial family, you tend to already have thousands of eyes looking at you. Trying to always understand or try to figure you out. So that creates a platform for you to want to be better than everyone else. So I think it's basically the environment that you grow in. Then came in the aspect of, I'm not a feminist, by the way, but I do fight for women. I just think that the word has been misrepresented. Sorry. I think the word has been misrepresented to mean, for some people, men bashing, but that's not what it is. It's only later in life, when you get into the corporate world, that's when you realize that, wait a second, it is hard being a female in a corporate world, because people talk about the glass ceiling, and there's only so much that you can reach. But now the problem is no more about the glass ceiling. It's what I call the glass cliff. And people can read up on that. So you'll notice that in big corporates right now, a lot of men are being replaced by women as CEOs, or as presidents, or whatever other title that's out there for at the peak. And once women turn around the business, they just get flicked like that off the cliff, and they get replaced by another man. And also, when the woman is being put into that position at the top, they don't bring a woman from the outside. You will notice, look at any corporate right now that's had a president, or an MD or whatever. The person is brought in from within the organization, okay? Which means that they felt comfort with somebody that they know, who knows the business. Let's give them an opportunity to shine, get our stuff done, and then throw them out as quickly as we can. So as I grew up, I've had many challenges in life. I've had a lot of things that have broken my back, that have broken my my heart, having lost my dad being terminally ill. I mean, in various things, in sports that I played. So each time, it's like rising of the phoenix. You get thrown into something, you get thrown into the mud, and then you stand up and rise. So I think my confidence has come in more from life, just, teaching you a lot of things. and wanting you to sort of like, like a diamond, you come out as a coal and you get polished and you get polished. So I don't see that I'm any different than women out there. I just think they need to be given the opportunity. I feel that you need to believe in yourself. I believe in myself, and I love myself first before everyone else. So I think if you do that, that's the only way. Then you can be able to go out there. And again, it comes in from a space of authenticity. And if you're authentic and true to yourself, then it doesn't really matter what you go and say out there, because then you're coming in from a space of speaking your truth. Some people may agree with it, some people may not agree with it, but at least then there is nothing that is inauthentic about you.
Yeah, thank you. So let's go back to talking about branding, marketing, and communications. Can you, for people who have businesses or want to start businesses or have brands, can you tell us what the difference is between branding, marketing, and communications, and how it works together?
That's like a class 101.
Yeah.
So the first thing is that for people who think sales is different from marketing, please understand that sales is a part of marketing. Marketing is the umbrella. So branding, sales, communication, PR, all fall under the umbrella of marketing, but then each one is a different discipline within the bigger discipline. So as I sit in front of you right now, I am a brand. You are a brand, Fahad. You have the brand of you being a Rwandan, me being a Kenyan. So there's the national brand that plays a role. That there's the aspect of being an African. So we are branded as Africans. And then it comes into what you do as the bold African, as your business as a brand. And then, there's African brand warrior as a brand. And then there's the brand Fatima and the brand Fahad. So branding, originated from the time where, and it's sad, it actually came in from slave trade. When slave trade was happening, if you, I don't know how much you've read of history, when the Dutch and the French and all the others that were there were coming in, they took slaves and they would take a mark, an iron mark, and put it on them, to represent that this is my man. So when they were being shipped, you knew who they belonged to. Sadly, that's where it originated from. Then the next step went into branding cattle and animals. The same way, you put a mark and a farmer was able to know that this is my herd. And then it obviously moved into putting in names. But for me, brands basically are. Everybody in marketing will tell you that it's not innate. It's basically a living product. It must represent something. It must have a perception. What do people think about it? It must have a personification. If I was to talk about, I don't want to promote any brand right now up here, but if I was to speak about a certain, the number one leading beverage drink, if it was to walk through the door, what would you visualize it as? If you were to put a person to that, would it be this tall, hunky, Senegalese looking kind of man? Or what is it? So branding is about putting life into it. Now, while we say that, it's at the same time a perception, right? So what you think of me and what you thought of me before you spoke to me was the brand image you have of me. It was the perception you had of me. And then hopefully after this conversation, you realize that, hey, wait a second, because I might realize, hey, wait a second, Fuad doesn't really get the gist of who I am, or hasn't really understood who Fatima is. So it is upon me, the brand, to make sure I rectify the perception that you have of me. So I come in and hopefully at the end of this conversation, the perception changes. If the perception that you had matches what you have at the end of this conversation, that it means I've done a good job of it. So in totality, businesses need to understand that marketing is not about going in and saying, hey, let me put a TV advert, and let me feature on Facebook, and let me put something happening on Instagram, and let me create a product and let me put a label. It goes beyond all that. When you're creating a brand to put on a shelf, it must have a pick-me-up feel. You need to know why you're even putting the name. What does that name represent? What do the colors represent? You don't just come out of it and say, hey, this is what I'm going to create. If it's an organization, why are you giving your company that name? What does it mean? What does it say to the people? Who's your target audience? Who are you speaking to? So for me, marketing is a science. It's purely a science about understanding. So when salespeople look at it as, oh my God, I just need to go and create sales and I need to make the numbers and I need to achieve the volume if I get it at the right price, that is so wrong. Because you need to understand that the people that you're selling to also have emotions, they have perceptions. It's not always just about price. So everything has to come in together. It's a holistic science of understanding why people need to pick you as their choice and to be part of their life.
Awesome. Thank you for that detailed explanation.
But that's not the way Harvard or anybody else is going to tell you.
Yeah, I would say that's much better and understandable. So how can businesses leverage branding and marketing to be able to grow their revenues and have a greater impact?
See, for me, for what in all honesty, right now, I would break that into two aspects. You have the established organizations that are, multinationals or African nationals, big corporations, and then you have those that are startups, and young entrepreneurs that are coming in. One of the challenges, if I start with the second group, the youth right now and the young people, I mean, have an amazing, plethora of ideas that they have, that's churning out of situation. Let me create this kind of cup. Let me create this kind of app. Let me create this. So it's all coming in from a problem. Marketing is that. It's about what is the problem and what is the solution that you can provide to that problem. Then you have a marketing, tactic right there. So my challenge with the youth is that because they're so quick and they're the only generation right now that has been exposed to so much of the internet and the world that is out there. Unlike my generation, we had to learn as we went along. So because they're very quick, they want to make money today. It's about right now. And in the process, they will do whatever shortcut that they can take instead of learning the ropes and the process to be able to get to where they need to get. And hence the reason you find a lot of startups starting well and then failing, not bringing in the right people on board, or, even bringing in advisors or people that can guide you, or mentors that can help you in the process. So marketing becomes a crucial element for them, because if you don't tell people what is the problem that your product is coming to give a solution to, or what is your app coming to do, or why are you branding it in the manner, why are you doing the color that you're doing, what does your logo represent, then you haven't really spoken to the audience that is supposed to be your audience. Who are you selling to? Secondly, is that people assume that the people you create the brand for, the end user, is the one that you also have to market to. It's not, because aspiration is an important thing. Because when you aspire to a level that is higher, it makes people feel, wait a second, I may not afford that, but I'd love to become a part of that. Do you get it? So that becomes the first stepping stones for me. The entrepreneurs, the startups, it's crucial to have people that can come on board to help you in terms of your business plans, to be able to help you on your marketing plans, help you on your brand and communication strategy and plans. Maybe they will say to you that, listen, I don't have the money to bring you on board. The world is not working like that anymore. You tell a person, listen, I'm willing to give you a stake in my business, whether it's 1%, 5%, 4%. I don't have the money to pay you right now, but can we work together, in this and lift it together? So I see that as a potential. I mean, that's the reason shark dens and, the lion dens or whatever exist. The difference is that somebody's coming to invest in your money because they see potential in you, but it's not because they want you to grow. It's because they want to also be able to own many businesses. So why can't we do that at that level, with the youth, and get people to come in and angel invest? Even if it's you're putting in $2,000 in a project, but come in and help them, to take them to the next level. When it comes to corporates, my problem with corporates is that you have some amazing organizations who we know are brand organizations. Everything that they do is based on brand insight, market insight, consumer insight. They get every kind of report from research under this earth. The problem there tends to be the bureaucracy. There's so much bureaucracy in the system that by the time you want to create something to address a problem, you have taken so long to do it. Either your competitor is going to get it done before you, or somebody in the youth segment is going to find a solution to that problem and get in there very quickly. So for me, on that level of multinationals, it's always about the bureaucracy and the time. Secondly, is also the vision. The vision at the top does not match what the output and the outcome of the people at the bottom is. Now, if we take African brands, again, one of the biggest problems that I see is that a lot of African brands, especially those that are coming up or those that don't know much about marketing and branding, they take shortcuts in terms of not understanding their target audience or their market. And you can see somebody who's producing amazing beef, honey, for example, or somebody who's making amazing sheer products, that in the market is being sold raw, but is able to now brand it and create, but they're not good at labeling. So all of a sudden, you don't see people wanting to pick that brand because they don't feel it resonates with them, or they don't believe it can do what it does. I'll give you an example. In Canada, there were these two guys who created a garbage bag. And I think the market rate, and I stand to be corrected, I think the garbage bag market was at $4.5. And these guys came in, and they came in with a garbage bag at, I think it was 1.5 or 2. And their garbage bag was supposed to be unbreakable. Okay. And that's what they said. Listen, you can take our bags and they don't break. Nobody bought them because nobody resonated that if you believe that this thing can actually work, why are you selling it at 1.5? Somebody came in, gave them the advice. They went and changed their pricing strategy. They took it straight away up to $7. They sold out. Okay. So again, it's about perception, how you market, who you market to. So I see that this thing can work for African brands if we just get it right. My problem is today, and I know a lot of players in the market right now who are selling to America, for example. If I talk about Ghana itself, they're creating Shea products, they're creating amazing products. But when they're selling it to America, my friend, that thing can sell at any of the top notch outlets and will be bought. And they'll sell it at high prices. But if they were selling it to the basic Ghanaian, you should see the packaging is the most pathetic packaging. So why do we treat that anyone out there is better deserving than our own within the market? So that's what I come in to do and say, how can I help you to be good for just your own first before you take it out?
Yeah, great. So how can these African brands penetrate the international markets? Because we don't see a lot of African brands making it into like US market or European market. How can they position themselves to start serving all these other markets as well, instead of relying on importing? They can also start exporting their products to international markets.
Okay, so first thing first, will they allow us? Will the other international markets allow African brands to come in and become, great? If we take a brand like what is the coffee company? The one that's at all airports called Java is Kenyan. Starbucks. Okay. Every time I'm flying, oh my God, I just go in and have a coffee, and I see, oh my God, Kenya, and then I see Addis Ababa. But where the hell is the Kenyan flag on that brand? It's not even. It's just that they're telling you its origin is Kenyan, but who owns it? It's Starbucks, right? If you talk, coming from Kenya right now, I know one of the biggest things that the government has recently talked about is now adding value to the Kenyan tea, for example, and coffee that's going out, because 80% of everything was going in as bulk, not branded, and then somebody else is branding it and just saying, oh, it's from Kenya, but the brand is not yours. So the first concern is that what can we do as governments, as policymakers, by involving the marketers and the branders in this, to say that how can we start protecting and building our brands first, okay, within the continent. You take an example of the Kiondo. I was writing about that recently. The Kiondo, you have it also in Rwanda, the woven basket. Yep. The Swahili word for it is Kiondo. But the word and design has been patented by somebody else. And if I'm not wrong, I think it was Japan or somebody. How can that happen when it belongs to Africa? You talk about the kikoi. Kikoi is a fabric that is woven and created by Kenyans and worn by Kenyans. And all of a sudden, again, the same thing, is happening. Recently, there was I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, it was the African top 100 brands that was announced. It was a research that was done out of South Africa, if I'm not wrong. And I think the top 100 brands, or was it the top 50 or the top 70? None of them was an African brand. It was global brands like MTN and BMW or whatever it was. So who is responsible for that? When Africans themselves have not been given the opportunity to understand their own brands. We don't push our own brands. We don't support market, or get people to buy our own. Why will we be focusing on the international market? I think
Mm.
first we need to, and this is why I'm happy the continental free trade is finally happening. It was supposed to start on the 1st of July, but obviously because of the pandemic, it hasn't happened.
Mhm.
Let's see how Rwanda has got amazing stuff that it produces. How can it sell it into Kenya? How can it sell it into Sudan? Ethiopia's got the best leather. How can it sell it into Ghana? Ghana's got cocoa and chocolate. How can we sell it into Kenya? What is it that Kenya can sell? So once we start this inter-Africa trade, then it means the competition starts getting stiffer, and it means that consumers start demanding better. Now, if we look at the West African part of the world, in comparison, and the same thing with Rwanda, is that it's an import-based country. Literally up to 90% of everything is imported, which means consumers in West Africa are exposed to international brands that are of a certain quality. So you can't come and sell them any, riff-raff stuff. They know the best. So that means that anyone that is going to produce anything within this country has to match the international standard for them to be able to procure it. So can we say the same for Southern Sudan? Can we say the same for Tanzania? The same for Mozambique? That's where we need to work on it. So before we can even think about the first world, because the first world right now is only focusing and interested in our raw material. Okay. Yeah. And I keep saying this, as much as people think that, colonialism has ended, I don't think so. Right now we have colonialism going on. And as much as I love my Chinese friends, I do, because I have quite a few friends, there is a Chinese colonialism happening at the moment, not of any fault of their own. Because China, for example, right now is coming in and supporting, governments and saying, hey, here, we're going to give you money to build your port. Hey, wait a second, here is money to build your railway. Hey, here is money to build your airport. Now, if you looked at that, basically what they've done is they've come and helped you to be responsible or build whatever you want to do within entry and exit into Africa, into your country. Are you going to be able to pay them that money? No, you're not. And then what happens? They come and take it over. Okay. Today, China is the world's cheapest manufacturer in the world. In the world. Okay. So you sell them the raw materials. They produce what they need for themselves. The balance, they're going to come back and export it to Africa. Where are manufacturers in Africa going to survive in the next 4 or 5 years? They won't be able to compete. So hence why marketing and branding is going to be so crucial, first for ourselves, for our own, and then we go out there. Once we perfect it for ourselves, then we go out there. Today you talk about moringa powder. Everyone in the first world is like, oh my God, moringa, it's an amazing thing. It's great for cancer. How many Africans use moringa? How many of us are actually trading it between ourselves?
Yeah.
So we need to revisit that whole discussion.
Yeah. So we need to start buying African products, and that will come from these African brands basically convincing Africans that they have the value that people expect from these foreign products, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, so you talked about how basically we importing all these products from China, from Europe, wherever, right? And all these products are made from raw materials that are exported from Africa. So what can African businesses and nations do to start adding value instead of just exporting raw materials at cheap prices? What can we do?
The issue is not the industries, to be fair. The issue is the government policies, and what governments do and don't do to make it easier for industries to thrive and grow and whatever. So let me ask you. I wouldn't take Rwanda as an example, because Rwanda for me right now is the epitome of what can be done in Africa. And congratulations to you and Rwandans. You have shown that whatever you want to do is achievable. And I'll give you an example for when there was the whole discussion about banning paper. Banning of plastics. In Kenya, we made so much noise about it for years. No, we can't do this, da 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 da. And then we just decided, one day we're going to give a deadline and we're going to ban. And then we ban, and then there's going to be no solution to it, right? Sometimes you might have to go that way. But what did Rwanda do? Rwanda went and built up the paper industry first. Okay, so it didn't come up with a knee-jerk approach. It built up the paper industry and then banned, plastics. You talk about secondhand clothes. We call it mitumba in Kenya. I don't know what you call it in Rwanda. But you're getting clothes of people that have died, that are being sold. People who are throwing away their stuff in garbage bags, and being washed and resent for us to wear, right down to underwears and everything else. So Rwanda said, you know what, this is disrespectful for our people. We can't do this. But what did? They went and built, the textile industry before they started this. So it shows as a can-do attitude. So right now, if I'm not wrong, I think Strive Masiwa was also in Rwanda last year, and there's some Rwandan girls who came up with the canvas, which could shoes that could compete with Nike. But the investment is being done in them. It's being invested in. If you look at the Alibaba Foundation, which I participated in last year, the winners were Rwandans. So when you see, it's about investing in your people. Okay, so I wouldn't go blaming manufacturing industries or people want to do. I'm sure people have ideas who want to. I mean, if you talk about Ghana, for example, we have bauxite, we have this. I'm sure if somebody wants to do it, they're not going to be given the opportunity to do it. There's going to be just so much bureaucracy because we find it easier that somebody else is going to bring us this $100 millions, which I'd rather take than the $1 million that your business is going to give me. So I think first it has to come in from governments. Governments have to change the glasses that they wear. They have to be supportive of their own nations. They've got to be supportive of the continent. And then we can start talking about, what else can we do outside there. So we've got to start protecting what's our own. We need to add value within the continent. And this can happen with the continental free trade. If, right now Mozambique is great in cashew nuts. I mean, they're 60% of the cashew nuts that grow globally is from Africa. 70% of cocoa that goes to the world is from Africa. How can we ensure that the different countries coming together, maybe we don't have the full facility to produce chocolates. How can we speak to Kenya or maybe speak to our neighbors, in Nigeria or Niger? Let's produce chocolates and then supply the world. So it can only work through collaboration. We need to collaborate as a continent first.
Yeah, that's powerful. I firmly believe in that. So how else can these young entrepreneurs who have great ideas, different ideas on how to solve Africa's problems, how can they get funding, capital for their companies? Do you have any ideas on how?
I mean, there's so much. Look, Fuad, in my line of, apart from what I do with African Brand Warrior, I sit on different C-suite discussion and boards where monies are lent out, from other countries, from Europe, from, various markets. I don't want to mention which one those are. And there are grants that are sitting there, wanting to invest and support. Even the World Bank itself has it. Yeah. The challenge has been that a lot of times people have great ideas, but they don't know how to put it on paper. They don't know how to craft their business plan. They don't know how to sell their ideas. What is this big idea that you have? And how do you see it translating, 5 years down the line? They only think about today. Hence the reason we go back to the earlier question. I think it was your second question where I said it's so important to have people come on board on your team. Go in and find people who are good at what they do and make them a part of your board or make them a part of your advisory team. Let them invest in you, the knowledge, the support, and give back by making them a partner in it. Or just go in with some agreements to people who are willing to help you and say, hey, listen, I don't have anything to offer you right now. I don't even know if my business is going to work. Can you help me to do my business plan? Can you help me to do what I need to do to be able to get that fund that is sitting there, at the World Bank or sitting at wherever it is? And if that comes through, I pay you a percentage, of the income. So money is there. Money is not the issue. The problem is the people who, apart from the World Banks and, whether it's the DFIDs or whoever else are really ready to give you this money, is that people don't know how to put the proposals forward. That is one. Secondly, is that we have our own institutions within Africa, the banks. And for me, they're the ones that are killing But unfortunately, you can't blame them because they're also a part of a bigger picture. If you're going to be going and lending money at 22%, 24%, how do you expect somebody to survive and be able to pay you back, that kind of money?
Yeah.
If we talk about the agri sector, which I also happen to be a part of and chair, how do you expect a farmer who doesn't have anything? I mean, these are people who don't work with bank statements. They don't know when money comes in, when money goes out. They don't keep track of all that. What collaterals do you want from these people? How do you want to be able to loan to them so that they could grow their produce, be able to sell and pay you back? So it really needs a complete mind shift. Money is out there. We just need to find different ways of getting it and how to get that investment locally and internationally. Right now, Africa is where people want to invest. I'm open to investment coming in, but I'm not open to investment if it's going to come and take away from you.
Yeah.
Invest in me to be able to make me help my people grow, but as we grow, you grow. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's making sense,
Yeah.
and that's talking back about collaboration. It should not be about, hey, listen, I've got this $100,000 and I want to come and put it in you, and I want you to turn my $100,000 into $500,000, and then I remain with nothing, not even $50,000.
Yeah. It has to go two ways. You both have to benefit from the transaction.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So speaking of, people want to invest in Africa. So who are the people who want to invest in Africa? Are these like foreign investors, or are these Africans?
And Africans in Africa who want to do that. I mean, you look at, I'll take a name like Dangote. Dangote is a known player on the continent. I mean, Nigerian, but you look at all the different markets that he has gone and invested in. I wouldn't mention one of the countries that he tried to get into, but unfortunately, there was too much of people wanting hands shooken, and envelopes exchanged, which doesn't tie in with what his firm believes in. So that became a no opportunity, and he didn't enter that certain market. But he is already going out. He is creating jobs. He's in different. You have Strive, you're out of southern part of Africa, and he's making a difference in his own ways. You have investors. I mean, Alibaba is one of them. Looking at the African youth and seeing there is potential. So I don't see this being as a problem. But here is my question to the diaspora. Okay, what is it? I mean, the diaspora is the largest, funder back into Africa. Okay, now can you imagine if the diaspora came together and said, "Hey, listen, we're a group of, let's say, 30 people, and we 30 people between us can raise $30,000. Let's just say per annum. And then you take another 30 with 30,000, $1,000 per annum. Each one just puts in, $10 a week or $100 a month, and you've got your $1,000. And they identify projects within Africa that are startups. Forget the big boys and say, hey, listen, okay, you know what? We're going to go and put in $10,000 in this one. We're going to put 10,000 in that. We're going to put 5 in this, 5 in that. Can you imagine the ecosystem that you create of Africans sitting out there that can actually invest within Africa and then come back home to grow it and take it to the next level? The knowledge is out there. It is out there. So that's the thing. How can we do this? How can we reach out to our fellow Africans that are sitting out there and say, hey, listen, it's not all about just wanting to buy land. I mean, land is the biggest investment, any African does. I mean, even in India, they do that, when you buy land and then you sit on it. And all you do is you want to build a house with 5 bedrooms and a swimming pool. Who are you going to show? Go build a nice 3-bedroom for yourself and your family or your parents, something that you have something to come back home to, or, to rent out, and then go and invest in businesses, invest in people, That's the way I see opportunity for us to grow.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I think, so the diaspora wants to invest back on the continent, but also there is a problem of trust. Like, how do I make sure that my money comes back, or I make a profit, or the money that I'm sending is going to the right people? How do I build this trust without being on the continent? So I've talked to like my very first guest, and he was telling me, hey, there is this issue of trust. People cannot start businesses in Africa while living abroad. You have to be on the continent for you to have any chance of like succeeding in business. But I agree with you on the investment side, coming together, pulling our investments, right? And then investing together as a group. Something like that can work because you can sort out the agreements and structure on how to do that, and we can start contributing and helping these young entrepreneurs who have great ideas that can help the continent to move forward, right?
I just want to address that part of the trust, and that's why you can see I'm clenching my hands under my table. It is
Yeah, yeah,
it is true, you know. But again, who's creating this image? It's we ourselves. We don't trust each other. You know, even within Africa, you know, you see somebody else who's got a better car, a better house. My goodness, the kind of thoughts that come into your head, like how did he get that money, and who did he? Da 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 da. You know,
yeah,
yeah, he's probably got some political person backing him or whatever. So we are our own problem. We are our own disease. The only way that you want to be able to create this trust, you want to be able to collaborate, be a part of it. You know, be a part of it. It's not about, I'm not talking about you lending money. It's about saying that, listen, this is what I am able to do. This is where my strengths lie. And this is what I can bring onto the table in your business. For example, if you spoke to me, I mean, in an initial discussion, you mentioned you're into software. I don't know zilch about software. Okay. But I'm
yeah,
great at marketing. So that doesn't mean that you and I cannot collaborate. And if I was to ask the same question, you know, to a diasporan African sitting out there, why should I trust you with my money? For example, you know, it's not like it's any different there. It's not like I'm going to get a visa to be able to say, oh my God, I'm going to fly. I have to chase so and so because they've got my money, you know? So I think it works both ways. The only way it works is purely on the basis of, wait a second, I have something that can add value to what you're doing. And, you know, you have something that I see we can work together and take it to the next level, because it's about what strength do you have and what strength do I have, and how can we leverage that, you know, and
yeah,
then take it to the next level.
yeah. Great. So yeah, while we're still talking about that topic, so Africa is rising. You hear this term all over the place, and some people, including myself, we don't know, what it really means. Africa is rising. Africa is the future. And here is something I read from The Economist, that Africa's population is projected to double by 2050, and Nigeria alone is expected to have a population of 400 million from 200 million, right? So that presents a lot of challenges and a lot of opportunities for Africa. Can you talk about what it means to you, Africa's rising, what it means, and also talk about these opportunities and challenges that this population growth is going to present?
Okay, so again, like as usual, my answer is going to be a very weird one.
Okay.
First and foremost, even I don't know what this Africa Rising is. Okay.
Okay.
Do they mean Africa is rising in terms of numbers and babies and whatever else,
Yeah.
or is Africa rising in terms of poverty? Is Africa rising in terms of opportunity, or what is it? Because this is my answer to Africa rising. Africa rose a long time ago. Africa is where mankind started. It was the cradle of mankind. Okay. In fact, it started. I mean, the first man was out of Africa. And the first man used to crawl, and then he bent up, and then he walked. So when the first man was able to walk in Africa, that's when Africa rose. We rose from our knees, and we rose to being standing up. So for me, Africa rising took place then. It's not taking place now. The difference is that Africa is the last continent to make a difference. Okay. Everybody's been there, done that. You look at Asia, they've been there, they've created the Asian tigers, done what they needed to do. You look at America, they're supposed to be the land of opportunity, and whatever else, and look at what they're going through right now. You look at Europe, they were supposed to be the food basket. That's where, wheat was grown, just like America. And then now everybody's is divorcing each other, and they're, exiting from one another. So if there's any place that anything still remains and has been blessed, with land, with water, with sea, with human resource, is Africa. Okay. Now, if we go back to history again, we talk about people, being taken as slaves. And I'm like, no, it wasn't slaves. You enslaved them. Okay. Why do I say that? Because from time immemorial, the story about hunters and gatherers. Okay.
Yeah.
Hunters were the men, and they went and they hunted, and then the gatherers were the women. So basically, what it's trying to say is that women are the ones who created the foods that we eat today. They're the ones knew that this is poisonous, this is not poisonous. So they created civilization. They created, the food economy. When people were being taken away, you had midwives who were giving birth to children. Okay, so when they were being enslaved, it's just that maybe the word midwife didn't exist in the English word or whatever it was at that time, but you were taking somebody who was a nurse. When people were using stones to teach their children, about whether it was math or how to count, their cattle or whatever, you were taking a mathematician, you were taking a teacher. So it's just that they didn't have those names. And then they went and built what is the first world. Okay, so Africa for me rose at that time. Now, if we come into terms of opportunity, the opportunity is there. But then the opportunity can only make sense when we stop sending out our raw materials. It can only stop when we start adding value and creating job creation. Because if you're talking about 450 million people in just one country, I mean, no, it's even more than that, because already Nigeria is, going to do 1 billion like India. Where are they going to get the food? Where is that food coming from? Are we self-sufficient in terms of our food? Do we grow enough for ourselves? So before we start even thinking about, export, and that's why I look at China and I respect them, for that, because they have done, they only have, I think it's, I can't remember how much land they have left. Was it 3,000 hectares or something? I can't remember. And that's the reason even the way they build their homes, they build it in this manner because they don't have space. And whatever they do is to take care of their people first. Okay. And that's the reason they're going out to different countries and saying, hey, listen, we want you to come and give us your resource, give us food, give us sesame, give us whatever. It's to feed their people first. Okay. You look at Egypt right now, because of the issue that's going on between Egypt and Ethiopia about the dam and the River Nile, the water levels are going down. Now, Egyptians are the biggest consumers of rice. But what has Egypt done? Egypt has sent out its people and said, listen, go out on the continent, go and grow rice wherever you want, export it back to Egypt. They thought about it, So if they can do it, why can't we do that? I mean, you talk about cassava, you talk about yam, you talk about our plantain. These are things that we as Africans have grown on. Do we have sufficient to be able to say that we can take care of our people first, so that food sufficiency comes in first, and then through that we create jobs? So we need to ask the right questions. So it's not about is Africa rising? Is Africa ready to be able to take care of its own? I think that's where the conversation has to lead to. It's about localization.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so we talked about how Africa is exporting these raw materials. I think that's where when these African governments revise their policies and encourage local manufacturing, we'll be able to increase production locally, and create jobs, and also have enough to sustain the population, right?
Yeah.
So you were on the board of Associate of Ghana Industries, right?
Yeah.
So you understand well the agribusiness and the sector, right?
Yeah, I tried.
Yeah. So for people who are interested in investing in agriculture, and coming to Africa or do like agribusiness, what can you tell them, and where do you see opportunities in the sector?
Look, it is where the money is. I keep saying that when we spend $1 to import, that dollar is never coming back. But when you spend $1 within your continent, that within each country, it rotates between 6 to 8 times within the country. It changes hands within that number of periods. So clearly shows you that if you want to do anything, do it on the continent. Don't go sending money out to. When you go out buying a Jaguar or a BMW from outside, you're actually creating jobs for somebody else, because somebody else then has to come to the factory to build one more Toyota for you or one more BMW for you. You're not doing anything for yourself. You're sending that money out and it's never coming back. You're only just going to get this piece of metal coming to you. Okay, the same thing. If we look at the chocolate industry, I mean, if 70% of the cocoa is going out of Africa, and it's just a few players, it's Ivory Coast, Ghana, Nigeria. You have some going in from Benin. If just between a handful, of four countries holds 70%, yet we're only competing in the 1.5 billion sector, okay, which is the sector of raw material. When you talk about the chocolate sector itself, the chocolate sector is $150 billion. Okay, and in the 1.5 billion, you don't even get 5% of that. So why are we not playing in the bigger pie? Is it that we can't produce Godiva? Is it that we cannot produce Lindt chocolates here? Of course we can. And what is sad for me is that, and with all due respect to Belgium, they make the best chocolates, and there's no denying about that. My question is that they don't even have one cocoa tree. They've never climbed a cocoa tree. And yet, the guys here are the ones going, sweating, are not able to feed their family 3 meals a day, just to be able to get that pod, put it down there, sell it so that it can be exported. Okay. Opportunity lies there. The opportunity for me is between merging the old and the new. And when I mean the old and the new is that technology is crucial. We need to move away from the archaic system of using a hoe and borrowing and figuring out to grow. We should be able to use machinery for this. Okay. If I quote Her Excellency, the former president of Mauritius, Dr. Amina Fakib, she's working on something where it is about taking the knowledge that the older generation hold, because once these people die, they go with all the knowledge that they have. Where is the repository of, hey, listen, this is the best way to grow, bananas, or the best way to grow maize, or because the young ones don't know. The young ones are all running into the urban center, wanting to be tech gurus, want to get into social media, want to get into marketing, and nobody wants to really go and dirty their hands. But it's because we have made agriculture to be seen and to be considered to be a poor man's job. It's considered to be dirty. It's not considered to be modern. But I have a saying, and I keep saying this, that when God created one custodian for this earth, he created the farmer. Because you and I would not be sitting and having this conversation. There would be no president of a nation if they didn't have food on their table. It's because of the farmer. When you look at governments right now, a government employee can read the newspaper, be it in Rwanda, in Ghana, Nigeria, wherever. They can sit and read the newspaper from 8 in the morning until 5 in the evening and still earn a salary. But a farmer is not guaranteed of a salary because his salary comes in on being able to sell his produce. Okay, so are we guaranteeing that farmer that whatever he produces is going to be sold? No. So opportunity is there, and that's where we need to invest. I mean, what is it that we're doing by importing chicken and meat from, right now, Africa is the biggest importer. Some countries, at least in West Africa, from Brazil, from America, and from the UK. Are you telling me that we can't grow chicken in our own backyards? Poultry farming, potential. Cattle farming, potential. Green vegetable, potential. Converting your fruits into dehydrated products, potential. So I would like to see how we can use the youth with all these ideas that they have. How can we address water problems, like irrigation? There must be some technology or, a robotic way or AI. I don't know. What is it that we could do with the knowledge that the youth have and what the older generation has in terms of, if you plant it in this way, this is what's going to happen. This is the height that you need. What can be done to merge those two and be able to make it work? Because if there's no agriculture, there is no country, there is no people, there's nothing. Agriculture creates, it's what creates the ecosystem, for our existence. So the potential, that's where the money is. That's where the money is.
Yeah. Perfect. So what kind of problems do you see right now in Ghana, in agri sector? Like what kind of problems these farmers facing that people with the knowledge and people with the education can come in and help to solve?
I wouldn't say it's only an issue with Ghana. It's an issue everywhere. The biggest problem that farmers have is finance, because they're not able to have finance. And these are people, if they walked into a bank, they're expected to pay 24, 22%. They don't have that kind of leeway to take that kind of money. Okay. Secondly, if they were to go and get the finances from the non-governmental organizations that are willing to give them. They're going to be able to write proposals. They don't have that knowledge in terms of how to do it. So I'm sure they can reach out to people within the continent or in the diaspora who can help them to write these amazing proposals, and direct them to where these monies are. Secondly, also is I think, support to them to buy local. If the policies are going to encourage more of importation, then how do you expect to compete? I'll give you an example. In Ghana, we continue to import tomatoes, red, fresh tomatoes. Yet we can grow tomatoes here. When our farmers were growing their tomatoes were dying. They had post-harvest losses because nobody was buying it, because logistics is an issue. How do you move, the tomatoes from the farmer to the market? And then because these are things that you can't keep for too long, they're going to rot. So we need to start advocating for support. I mean, I see some amazing young guys. There's a guy called David who's doing an amazing job in terms of poultry now. There's another group called So Organic. They're growing organic food, and they have markets every weekend, for people who are interested in buying organic. So you're seeing it slowly coming in. The challenge is, and again, more so for Ghana and across Africa, is that we are too into smallholder farming and not large-scale farming. We need to start collaborating again as farmers. We need to move into large scale. And more importantly for me is that how can we make farmers part of businesses? So if, for example, an investment is going to come into Ghana, for example, for doing let's say chocolate, or it wants to do corn, grow maize and then convert it into Doritos or whatever else it is. Can we make sure that the farmer that is supplying you, or the cooperative of farmers, of maize farmers, gets at least 5% stake in your business? Okay, what that does is it means then this farmer doesn't have to go looking for different people to sell to. He's guaranteed that as he sells to, he's guaranteed of an income, and he also ensures that he's got to be price competitive, because this is now his business as well. He owns a 5% stake in that business. So that way he also becomes, cognizant of the fact to make profits. He's got to give his best. Make the logistic suppliers a partner in the business. Give them a 1%, give them a 2% in the business. So this way you're creating a system of players. It's not about being selfish and saying, hey, we've come in and we're investors and we're putting up this huge fruit processing company. But then you're not involving the people who are supplying you the fruits. How can you make them become a part of? This is the only way you make everyone become a part of the wealth, and everyone become rich in the process.
Yeah. Perfect. Thanks. So for people who want to come in and invest in Africa, how can they do their research? Like, are there any places where they can start their research? Let's say if they wanted to invest in agriculture in Ghana, how can they go about making sure they, find the right people? And
there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of information. Sometimes you don't know which one's true, which one's not. Obviously, there are the government institutions that you can look up to. Like if it was Ghana, you would look at into the Ghana Investment Promotion Council, who are online. You'll find information. You can come to the Association of Ghana Industries. I'm the chair of the agribusiness sector. You reach out and you say, hey, listen, I want to come into agriculture. What is your views in this sector? Where we are there to help you. I mean, I'll give you an example. The shea sector. Shea butter is, again, just like the cocoa butter, which has become a big thing. The shea is another big thing. And, there's a great guy in Ghana. In fact, there are two of them. One is a guy called Senor Poli and Peter Lovett. And these are the gurus of shea. You talk to them about shea in Nigeria or shea in Benin or shea in Ghana. They have the answers. You just have to build your network. You need to know who to go and ask. And people will help you, and they will be able to give you the right network. You just need to ask and try and find out. I mean, we only hooked up on LinkedIn, and I'm sure there's other ways. LinkedIn is a fantastic tool and application for people to collaborate, to get to know each other, and be able to create synergies. So I definitely think this would be a first stop.
Great. Yeah, definitely. People who want to connect with other Africans on the continent, check out linkedin.com and pretty much search anyone.
so I'm going to do what you do now, and I'm going to go out and start using the
Yeah.
search.
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to do business in Rwanda and you didn't know anybody there, you can start with LinkedIn and just look for
Oh, I
people
have
in
some good
your.
friends in Rwanda.
Yeah, yeah, I know you do, but for people,
Yeah, but for
well, yeah,
anybody, Rwanda is the place to be right
yeah,
now, and I'm just very happy. And I want to just say thank you to you, your people, your president, for setting the tone for what Africa really can do. And what it can achieve. You've actually shown that it is possible. And the same thing, to the president of Eritrea, and Ethiopia. They have shown they are perfect examples of what can be done. And yeah, it's all possible.
yeah, absolutely. Rwanda has been through a lot, and Rwandan people are very resilient, and working so hard to get to where Rwanda is. Of course, our leader and involving women in the
And the
process
climate,
of
yeah,
developing the country. Rwanda is very huge on like innovation and technology, and also branding. Branding itself.
absolutely.
Uh,
I mean, come on, you're the only country that went and sponsored football, at a global scale. Everybody's like, what the hell are they doing? But nobody thought about how strategic that was.
it is strategic. It is, and people are quick to judge, and before they even understand,
Yeah,
because if you and I would like to listen to your take on that, because the Western media was bashing Rwanda for doing that,
yeah. It's because
but
Western media does not expect Africa to be anything but,
really,
a continent of
yeah,
people with balls on their hand and flies
yeah,
flying over their heads.
yeah.
That's the reason.
But I think that was a very important move, and for African countries to prosper and to also be self reliant and independent, we really have to show the kind of value that we have for other people. Instead of getting aid, we can show what we can give in terms of value, and
Absolutely.
and,
I mean,
and
look at
yeah.
you. Look at South Africa.
Mhm.
I know in my time, I mean, you're younger than me. I'm in my 40s, and I remember the time when, discussions of apartheid in South Africa was happening.
Yeah.
I worked on an amazing campaign in South Africa for a joint venture for Wilmar Continental, and the MD and the campaign was worked with an agency called Brainwave out of Kenya, and we came up with this amazing emotional campaign, and we used artifacts of South Africa right down to the vuvuzela and everything. It was during the World Cup, and we showcased that. They talk about it being a rainbow nation. It's supposed to be about all the colors and whatever. Today, how many people remember anything about the apartheid? Because South Africa was able to quickly change. I mean, South Africa today have what it's called the IMC group. And what these people do with government is they immediately go online. Whenever they find any negativity, they quickly pull it down, or they will make sure that, in the search, it goes right at the bottom, and they try to put in positive comments up there. And the
Yeah.
MD of this company wrote to me, and his name is Firoz. And I remember the email he sent me, and he said, Fatima, thank you so much. This is the first time as a South African I feel I could stand up to the national anthem and sing it with pride. And it really felt good that an MD of an organization could write that to me, because all I did was just create a marketing communication that was supposed to resonate with the people. Today, people don't remember much about apartheid. I mean, they know it's part of their history, but South Africa has presented itself, in a different way. Look at Rwanda. Rwanda right now is the businessman's playfield. You
Yeah.
think Africa, the first place you're thinking now is, how can I get into Rwanda? What can I do in Rwanda? You guys are creating mobile phones. You're doing stuff in Ghana. We've got a car, Kantanka. Who thought that cars were going to be created here as well? So we are doing things in our own way. Rwanda's got the biggest solar farm, happening. Things that people don't know, and this is why I'm so happy you're doing this, Fuad, because we have to tell our stories. We've got to change this picture that people think. And like you say, with what Rwanda did with that football sponsorship, yes, people might think that's a lot of money. It was a lot of money, but it was strategic, because
Yeah.
it was not putting Rwanda on the map. Okay.
Yeah.
And just by those footballers speaking about Rwanda, people started understanding who Rwanda was, because otherwise Rwanda was going to be seen as some international musician or somebody who came to adopt a child out of Rwanda.
Yeah.
That's not what it's about.
It's
There's
not.
more.
There is a
So
lot in Rwanda. There's a
hats
lot to
off.
do.
Hats off to what you guys did. Hats off to
Mm,
what you continue doing. And I really wish, I say this with all due respect, that the rest of the Africans could look at what you guys are doing. Forget whatever they think about in terms of negativity or the political angle or whatever it is, but just look at the good that you're doing as a country and see how can we emulate. What is it that we can do to do exactly what you're doing,
yeah,
and make it better for our people. So if you can do it, we can do it.
yeah, absolutely. And do you have advice for young entrepreneurs who want to set up their businesses? What kind of things would they keep in mind? How would they frame their mindset to prepare them for success?
Look, I don't want to say that, I mean, our favorite, Lupita, also said, your dreams are valid. I don't wish people and tell them your dreams come true, and every dream, you have can come true, because nightmares are also dreams. People don't realize that. So sometimes you tell people, I wish your dream comes true, and hello, you have a nightmare and that comes true as well. What I would like entrepreneurs to work on is conviction. Okay. Conviction that you can do this, conviction that you know that it's possible, but always look at it from the angle of what problem are you intending to solve, because everything that you do must solve a problem. Okay. And if you come up with that perspective and also have a learning mindset, let no one cheat you, whether it's a role model or whoever you have out there, that they have the answers to everything, that they are know-it-alls. They keep learning as well. Read, and learn as much as you can. There is no right model, there's no right approach to doing anything. As long as you have the passion, you know, you must have passion within you to be able to believe that, bullshit your way through, if that's a way to say it. But you've got to believe that you can do it, and go out there, but answer a problem. And if you know that you're answering a problem, then nothing stops you into making it in, coming into a realization. Second thing would be collaboration. Collaboration, I think, is crucial. We need to move away from this frog in the well mentality and think that it's all about me, myself, and I. We need to grow, and we need to grow together. And if we are able to do it together, then we're able to bring in more people onto the journey. Don't believe and don't wait for the seat at the table or to be called onto the table. I suggest you bring in your own table, your own chair, and your own friends around that table, and create your own community. Create people that, where you have a weakness, let somebody else who has a strength in that area become a part of what you are looking at building and doing, and together you can be able to achieve it. So go out there. I just believe, you hold the paintbrush, you hold the canvas, and you can just create whatever it is that you want. Do not be scared of failures. Do not be scared of being ridiculed. Do not be scared of being torn. You will have a lot of naysayers. You will have a lot of haters. But that should become your stepping stone to the next level.
Thank you so much. That's incredible advice right there. Yeah. So I'm wrapping this up. For people who want to connect with you and learn from you, learn about your work, how can they do so? Where can they find you?
I think the best place is LinkedIn. Fatima Alimohamed, and African Brand Warrior is what I do. And I respond to every message that I get, and then through that I exchange my number and my email, and we stay connected.
Great. Thank you so much, Fatima. It was a great pleasure having you, chatting with you. You shared a lot of knowledge. Good luck with everything that you're doing, and keep being an African brand warrior.
Thank you for having me. I'm grateful.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.